Over the last few months, religion has returned to the forefront of much of the American debate, from Republican presidential candidates
It will undermine the family. It will destroy faith in America.
to legislative debates
The administration impedes religious liberty by unilaterally redefining what it means to be religious.
to YouTube videos.
What if I told you Republican doesn't automatically mean Christian, and just because you call some people blind doesn't automatically give you vision?
But tonight, in light of our previous episodes on intergenerational justice and education, we turn away from the political chest-thumping and national smears to ask a different question. How does religion affect teens? Tonight, you will hear responses to these questions and more from students and families and religious leaders, and substantive debate from an all-teen roundtable discussion. It's April 2nd, 2012, and Student News starts right now.
I believe that a parent should have authority over children on both religious and secular issues up until it infringes on their basic rights. So if a religion somehow gives a child less rights by denying them an education or by denying them other aspects of what I personally believe are the unalienable rights as outlined in the Constitution, or the Declaration of Independence, I believe that a parent should have total control of their children in general, as long as it is not infringing on that child's right to a happy life. So that child should not be sold into child labor, etc., etc., etc. I also believe that a parent should have these rights up until the age of 18, unless it's shown to be, unless they are infringing on their child's rights.
I think it's helpful, and I think it's how parents should pass the kind of the good parts of their past onto their children through religion. But I think when it becomes really negative in their life, and I think that kind of detracts from the point of adding religion to a child's life. So I think you should add the religion, and I think you should give them that foundation. But when it's so not what the child wants or not what they believe in, then it's detracting from that. It goes against what they are trying to do.
Up into an extent where it's forceful, up to an extent where the child doesn't necessarily want to read the Bible anymore, or want to have a bar mitzvah, or want to every night sit down with your parent and believe that literally everything in the Bible is what you should believe, that every little thing literally is what happens on earth, and that every little thing is so important, then if a child doesn't believe that, then why should they be forced to believe that? But if a parent wants to infringe that on their child, I believe that's when it becomes kind of the slippery slope, where a child shouldn't necessarily, up until the age of 18, shouldn't necessarily have to live by that their whole lives.
You bring up sort of the idea that the point at which a child doesn't sort of like believe literally in everything, in every word of the Bible, or something like that. But does that also extend, because there are certainly, I think, households that would consider themselves religious that don't necessarily adhere to like literal interpretations
definitely.
of the Bible. So is there any sort of an issue with this idea that because the parents are a certain religion, that at least to up until a certain age, the child is going to be that same religion? Is there any sort of problem with that, or is that totally fine?
If the child goes to church, if the child goes to Hebrew school and believes that what they've been like exposed to is actually what they believe in, and is actually, hey, this is kind of cool, I kind of want to invest in this and kind of make this part of my life, then that's where I think it should be their decision. But when a family, I think when it becomes when the family as a whole is saying this is the way we are going to do things, then I think that's okay. But if a child up until the age of 18, like after 18, disagrees with that, then I think they should have the freedom of how they should lead their lives.
My kids, there's three of them, they were raised in a household where I'm clearly, a religious person. And their mother, my wife, was not raised in a religious household at all, is not technically a member of the church, so she's kind of a member of this community just because we're related. So they were kind of raised in a sort of bilingual household, both spiritual, religious, and secular. I think what they do have, which I have, is a sense of wonder and curiosity about what God is up to in the world. And that there's something beyond them and even beyond their family that sustains and upholds and loves them. And that might be all that we have in common. Even though, they still come here and they take communion and they are members of the church.
I think parents should give their children freedom to choose religion, like whatever they want to choose. Because for me, like all the religions, you worship God. You're all looking for God. You all want to have a relationship with God. So I think they should respect and tolerate.
I think that parents should give a foundation for kids in their religion, but not necessarily make them one religion. I don't think there's one way to try to educate kids about religion, except for, they should educate kids about different religions so that they can have many choices in the future to pick.
I think a lot of parents feel a great deal of responsibility to make sure that they pass down the religion that they feel strongly about. In fact, it's like cultural norms or any kinds of habits that we were raised with. If we don't pass those on to our children, they'll be lost. And there's the old adage that many parents say, if I don't expose my child to this faith, they'll have no faith at all. They won't believe in anything. And when they get to be an adolescent or a teenager, it's too late. I'd rather have them be exposed to something and have them rebel against it.
I think that the idea of passing on a religion or a spirituality is mainly based in the continuity of that religion through the generations and passing on maybe parental values and something that matters a lot to the parents. They want their children to believe in that as well because they think they at least think maybe that's what's right, or they think, oh, my children should agree with me. But I think if it comes to the point of the child being forced to do something or believe something that they do not want to and explicitly do not believe, or then it should no longer be up to the parent. If the child, sure, some kids might be bored by a religious service at the age of 5, but once they're up to age 13, or once they're up to an age where they can seem to make some decisions for themselves, they should be able to say, look, I don't believe this, and I thank you for showing me spirituality in general, but I want to look for myself at other things.
I think what happens a lot is that instead of parents passing on kind of the core values of the religion or of their, kind of that intersects sometimes with their life, but it's I need you to be this religion versus I want you to be this kind of person through these values. I think that's when kind of the whole negativity arises of being forced to have this religion.
Is there a fundamental difference, right, between sort of secular goals and sort of religious goals? Insofar as, right, like you're saying that it's okay for a parent to want their child to end up being a certain way, or this is the kind of person I want you to be, but it's not okay for the parent to say, these are the exact beliefs that I want you to have, if I'm understanding you correctly. So like, is there a distinction there, and how does that impact the parent's role?
I just think there's different pathways to find to go to that person that the parents want to be. And I think if they're so rigid about that having to be one religion, then I think that's forcing them and that's pushing something onto them that they shouldn't be doing. But I think by recognizing that there's different religions, there's different ways of being spiritual can still get you to the same endpoint.
I think religion, taking a step back and looking at religion in a general sense, it's about love. Ultimately, I think that's what religion strives to give people. That's what faith, that's what God, I think that's what it should be all about. And when it comes to this forceful, literal, really, really strict, rigid comprehension of religion, that's when the parents, and that's when I think our society can really get away from what religion should be.
Well, I've been going to Sunday school since kindergarten, and there's been a lot of arguments about that throughout the years. I think I've kind of gone back and forth between, in kindergarten we just watched movies, so it was fun, but then when I got older it wasn't very fun, and my dad kind of tries to stay out of those arguments because he's really not religious, but my mom has still pushed that on. My mom pushed me to go, and that definitely made me not want to because of her pushing.
I'm not quite sure, actually, if my child's religious beliefs are different than my own. We haven't raised our children with very strong religious beliefs. So my husband's Jewish, I was raised Roman Catholic. We exposed them to both, but we've traveled a lot around the world and been in a lot of places where there have been multiple world religions. And we've tried to raise our kids with the ability to see all those religions. I was raised in an extremely religious household. So I grew up in a community, a small New England community in southern Rhode Island, where the only makeup there were Roman Catholic families that were no smaller than 6 children in size. I'm the youngest of 10 children, and so we all went to Catholic school, and we believed that the world was made up of Roman Catholics. That was our understanding of the world. And then when we went to college, we realized, wow, there are Jews and Muslims and Buddhists and all kinds of other people that believe different things than us. And I think that was really eye-opening, but to me, it felt like it was very late to be learning that.
Well, I was brought up as a Lutheran. My father was a Lutheran minister. And Zoe is Jewish. So it's obviously, I mean, religious-wise, it's different. But that doesn't bother me because long before she showed up, I had already sort of moved away from the formalized Christian religion. And although I don't actively follow any religion at the moment, I'm more aligned with what I know of the Jewish faith than I am with the Christian faith. I like the fact that they ask questions all the time. Mm-hmm. It's one of the part of the problem I have with the Christian religion is the dogma. We're right, you're wrong, and that's all there is to it.
Hopefully, no matter what it is, whether you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Wiccan, pagan, if there's a sense that this faith is kind of a family, in the best sense of the word, a functional family, and that this family has some mores, it has certain customs which do not make it better than any of the other families of faith, but just give it some shape and identity. And there may be a time when you decide to choose another family. But this is ours for now.
I understand, like my mom has told me that I have to get confirmed, and then from there she'll let me decide whether I want to continue on, and I think that's important, like just to have some kind of base of like some religion, unless the parents are not religious at all. Then
Well, my family, we do share religion beliefs because since I was little, we were taught, we were raised like about their beliefs and everything. So they taught us everything since we were little.
My sister and I are not as religious as my mother. Let's just say that because my mom is definitely raised differently than we have been raised in terms of learning about Judaism and really focusing on the core ideas of it and practicing them every single day. Because I was adopted at such a young age, I never had the experience of having another religion, like Buddhism or anything over in China. But I think that it's really up to how I grow up and see other kinds of religions to try and find what I believe in and what my future looks like in terms of what religion I hold.
So that's where we get a little bit of argument because like I go to a different church, so I have a different belief, but my parents, I hide it from them. They don't know. And my dad, if he finds out, he'll be so disappointed. Catholic, they have this belief, they believe in images. And I don't agree that they believe in images, that we should worship images. And they also bow to the priest. And I don't think, because the priest is a human like you, and they bow down to the priest and ask for forgiveness, for salvation and all those things. And I don't agree with that. And that's why I switched to Adventist, because you have more freedom.
I think that when your children assume the same religion that you assumed as a child, we only learn our faith from the parents that we had that taught us. And when that happens, it's a great sense of shared community and faith and family. So yes, it's absolutely naturally comfortable when your children know how to go to church and know how to go through the rituals and understand it, and it's very comforting.
Well, my parents, they're more religious than I am. They're Mormon. Yeah. So they kind of want me to follow their religion, but I'm not really that religious. Well, they kind of, like, when I was younger, forced me. They didn't really give me a chance, so I just went for the wrong reasons, and I didn't like going. It kind of made me, like, mad sometimes, like, they were forcing me. I wish, like, I don't know, because, like, now I feel like I don't have that much belief, because, like, I was being pushed too much when I was younger.
My mom and I have been arguing a little bit about my sister and her bar mitzvah, and if she should have one because I had one, or if because Pari doesn't want to necessarily be Jewish, she doesn't need to have one. And this debate has affected how I've seen my sister as being Jewish and how I see myself as being Jewish. My mom believes that because I had it, my sister should have it, family tradition, and also it's a big step in Judaism. And I believe that, but also that she should be able to have her own choices about her religion. But I think that it's a good beginning of learning about religions like Judaism.
I brought my children to church, and I learned how to do Passover Seders and light Hanukkah candles for my husband because I was interested mostly in the tradition. I think the tradition of cultural high holy days are part of our heritage. They're part of our ancestry. And so whether a family feels spiritually motivated to introduce religion to their child or whether they feel culturally responsible, either one of those I think is okay.
I grew up seeing the machinery working, the machinery of the formalized religion in play, in work. and it turned me off, frankly. So that I have very little patience with the organization of churches. The idea that you owe allegiance to the church is what I'm not crazy about, because I find it in most of the religions that I've had contact with, again, all of those Christian religions, it becomes sort of dogmatic. And I mean, my father, knowing the kind of things he had to deal with and the way people treated each other and him, I found quite objectionable. So it's really, it's not so much the faith of belief as it is, my problem is with the construct of the church.
And I just wanted them to know the best part of religion, which was that they are beloved, that of all the messages that kids are saturated with, not just children but all people, that they're not rich enough, they're not thin enough, they're not athletic enough, they're not attractive enough, they're not talented enough. All of those messages are irrelevant in God's eyes. That each one of us within each one of us dwells divinity and the possibility of tremendous beauty and goodness. That's all I wanted my kids to have. And there's a lot in the church that's what it's really all about, and about inclusion of all people. There's a lot of religion that's exactly against that. I mean, it's distorted in so many ways. And my job is to try to heal the distortions. So it's a life's work. But that's the message that we wanted our kids to have.
The idea then about, and you brought this up earlier, of sort of like, how do other issues relate to parents and raising their children sort of around religion and around faith? We have the First Amendment, which states explicitly that the state cannot make any law abridging, religious freedoms and whatever. No law respecting religion, right? No law that impacts religion. But if you look at a religious community like, say, the Amish, right? There was a whole case about Amish parents wanting to pull their kids out of the public schools because they didn't want them exposed to sort of the English world, right, opposed to the Amish world, because that would harm their child's ability to fully ingratiate themselves into the Amish community. The opponents of that then said, of course, that you're limiting the child's ability to have self-determination about the things that they think, and you're sort of limiting the scope. But the survival of the Amish faith is somewhat predicated, the supporters believed, upon limiting child's. So all of that aside, sort of where does education fall in this, right? Like, you have this consistent debate about the Big Bang Theory, about evolution, about, creationism, should that be in science classes or not? How does this, and how do the parents' rights to their child's religion, how does the child's rights to self-determination impact what the state or education or the community, what they can do around the child? And I'll pass it to Will first, but let's try and keep it brief too.
I mean, I think no child at the age when the Amish want to pull their kids out of school is ready to make the sort of decision, am I ready to commit my life to a religion, or am I ready to, or do I want to keep experiencing the world? And I think that's where we see a lot of trouble. I think that it is the government's job to protect people's rights to a certain degree. And so I believe that any sort of belief structure that infringes on those rights, whether intergenerational rights, whether it's because of an intergenerational issue, or if it's like hate crime, where you're where a religion could be, or a religion or a belief could be infringing on rights to safety. I think it all comes down to the same thing, that a religion should not infringe on rights.
So if religion is the basis of everything, and because in the Amish it is, and it affects education, it affects what they eat, it affects how many kids you have, it affects your marriage, it affects everything. Every little thing in your life is affected by what they think God wants them to do and what their religion is. Then I don't think that, and I think their own educational values is, if that is separate from what the United States thinks, what a teenager should learn, then I think that's totally fine. Because that's their religion and that's what they believe is right for them. And I don't think that the Constitution, or I don't think that the federal government should really be intervene in that, because it's so important to them and it's the basis of them, and if you take that away from them, then they're not technically the Amish anymore.
The idea where religion would influence self-determination so much, I mean, personally, I believe that a religion shouldn't have that kind of power over an individual, and yet it does, and it's a culture that will potentially go extinct without the religion, and it's at an age where the children cannot necessarily make up their minds for their own. So I think it's something that is just going to have to. I don't think there is an answer like yes, it is just, no, it is just, no, it is not just. I think it is very much. I don't even know.
I think it's unjust. I think it's unjust to stop children from being able to see different things. I don't think the government can say that they can't have their beliefs and it can't affect their life, but to say that they can't go out and find out different things, I think that it's like censorship. You can believe what you can believe, but I think you should have the opportunity to see everything.